Hey guys, welcome to session 5. This is going to be looking at your future self in a specific scenario. We're going to wrap up what we were working on last week with parts and integration, and also going to work on fear and self-confidence. So last week was heavy. I know it's really the heart of what I teach, right? I thought really what I taught was intuition and authenticity. And if you're here, hope you're hanging in for the ride because we'll get there. But truly, what I'm finding, I cover these, but at the heart of what I'm teaching is it's all about beliefs. Beliefs are really at the center of our habits, our actions, our stuckness, basically all of the things that we're looking to shift about ourselves. So it's like I've said, it's not how you change your thoughts, how you change your life, right? Everybody says change your thoughts, change your life, but really it's more like uncover your subconscious beliefs and examine them and keep what's yours and what supports your authentic self, fuck the rest and change your life. But I have to work with my marketing person to shorten that up a little bit because it doesn't really roll off the tongue. But the point is valid. You can't hear your intuition if you have all this static of other people's expectations and all of these learned beliefs in your way. Even if you hear it, you're certainly not going to act on it because you're probably in a place of fear or doubt or not wanting to show up in that way. So if you're following my belief that our local intuition is a huge part of your intuitive process, remember local intuition is that intuition that's that like quick response. It's recalling things that we've experienced, learned, know. They're stuck in our, in our subconscious and our memory that we're not really rapidly accessing, and it's integrating with new information kind of in our environment. So if you buy into that idea that it's our past self that's bringing you this rapid knowledge, if you don't recognize and clean up the views, the beliefs, etc., you may end up getting this skewed or hazy or like funhouse mirrored, distorted information coming into you. So that's why it's so important for so many facets of your life to recognize the beliefs that are controlling your life, make sure they're yours, get rid of the ones that are not, shift and reframe the ones that are still with you, and really clean that up so that you can hear your intuition. So what we're talking about beliefs is really going to take up probably more than half of our time here because it's so important to get that re-perspective, if you will, and shift and support into ones that are really holding us and supporting our move into our future and our authentic self. So super quick review of parts. Hopefully, if you weren't here last week, you're able to watch the last recall. So the premise of parts, right? If you go with internal family systems and kind of read into some of the materials out there, it's a premise that during times of big events in our lives, like they call it little t and big T trauma. So like these big things that happen to us, parts of ourself step up to handle the situation, right? It's almost like a part of us like separates a little bit and to protect the self. So this part steps forward, it takes the lead to shield our authentic self, our really childlike, innocent, true self. And the authentic self kind of goes a little offline when this happens. So they're taking on what comes to you, finding ways to help you deal and cope with what's happening. Most of the time it's not terribly beneficial, but they do come from love. I think that was one of the most important things that came out of last week is that, as you're looking at these parts, as they come up, as they're some of the most frustrating things about ourselves, and we always want to get rid of them. We want to cut them out of our lives. We want to change. We want to, we don't want this part anymore. We need to really look at it from a place of thanks and appreciation because that part was there to protect us at one point, and they love us very, very much. It sounds so weird to talk in the third person about it, but they do really, 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 they are a part that is there to protect us and is taking on a lot for us. So they become our protectors. They're stepping in whenever we're back in that same situation, but any situation that kind of reminds us of that situation. They come from a place of saving and protecting, but then they don't step back or they show up at all times, even when they're not really useful anymore. They're the reasons that we say to ourselves, like, I don't know why I act this way. I wish I could stop acting this way. They do feel foreign and confusing to us, even though they're one-time beneficial. And I'll give a super quick example that may hit home for some of you. So my dad and I growing up really butted heads. He was not the same person he is today. He was very critical, very, you know, I wasn't good enough in my eyes. That's what I felt his words to me generally were. And so I was always very defensive when I talked to him. Like the first words that come out of my mouth, I was always defensive and always agitated. And as he's done the work on himself and he's become a much more loving, wonderful person. My dad's a great person, but he's very different than he was before. But I still find myself reacting from that gut place. I still find myself when he asks me a question like, oh, why are you asking me this? I'm so annoyed, or God, like not wanting to give him the information. And it's something until I discovered this work that it really confused me because, you know, at the conscious level, I'm like, Dad's different. Dad loves you. Also, you're an adult. Dad is generally just curious about your day. He's not here to criticize you, but I was reacting from this part that was defending younger me. So anyway, they show up, and many times there were those things that were like, man, why do I keep doing this? So the concept is to acknowledge, accept, and integrate these parts by seeing that they were here to help us and that they played a pivotal role in our development. And if you remember, I really said that parts, you know, they are like these little characters that show up kind of, I think I mentioned the movie Inside Out from Disney, but parts are really beliefs personified. It's almost like giving a voice to our belief, giving a caricature. That's a really hard word to say. So I'm just going to say a personification to our beliefs. So that is really the way that I look at it. If our beliefs had a voice and a body, it would be one of these parts. So it doesn't have to be a trauma that caused any habit of perception. Any belief that we take on can become a part that we act from. It's really important for you to understand that your authentic self, your higher self, if you will, are the one experiencing and the emotions and the thoughts due to your beliefs. The authentic you is still there. You're actually the one that's ultimately in control. And what we want to do is to start making more of these decisions, obviously from a conscious place. And the authentic self is who we're trying to come back to, who we're trying to bring all of these parts back to. As soon as we shift our beliefs and bring our beliefs, if they are indeed our beliefs personified, those parts come into congruence with who we are. So the goal is harmony between all parts of self and to operate fully conscious. So we're going to talk about teaming up with your parts. So this is a way to shift. We talked about reanalyzing our beliefs before we shift them. So this is a way to do that. So I've already talked about one way, the belief ladder, identifying hidden beliefs and using the belief ladder and working from your future self. But this is another way to do it a little bit more directly, in a way that sounds kind of crazy, but it works. So we talked about the parts taking over, protecting your authentic self in situations, and the authentic self taking a backseat to this action. It's really important to note that these beliefs show up in two different ways. Call them directors and first responders. So your authentic self is your whole self, that person that you are trying to get back to before the world told you you were you. And that's the one who's taking the back seat. The others are directors. Directors act preemptively. They keep us safe by trying to protect and control our environment. They are the ones that are managing how we're perceived, what we wear, who we date, where we go, the things we say, that very parts of us that keep us very guarded and small. They're generally our most critical inside voices. They're our most critical inner voices. They are there to contain and protect that vulnerable self. And unfortunately, the way that they go about doing it many times is to be the critical voice before the world can be the critical voice. So if you see that critical inner voice coming up, if you feel yourself being very limited, that's probably one of these directors. They're trying to direct everything in your life, direct what you're doing, direct what you're thinking, where you're going, how you're acting. Then the next is the first responders. These are the parts that show up when something's got past a director or we're in a new situation, and they're reactive. They feel we're in danger. We have these overwhelming emotions that are out of check. So they remove us from what we are feeling. So unlike directors, they can't get us and protect us from the situation, make us, avoid it. What they can do is take us out of the situation. And many times this is these avoidance techniques or tactics, I should say, not techniques, tactics, overeating, over drinking, overworking, binge watching Netflix, reorganizing our closet by shirt type, activity type, and color before work. I did that one time to avoid going into the office. So they can even seem like maybe good things, but we need to recognize that when they're taking us out of what we're feeling, they're a first responder and they're a part trying to protect us from what we're feeling. And so they're really there to suppress those powerful emotions. So the next part is, this is really the next, if you want to hit the next slide, this is teaming up with your parts. This literally could be an entire, not just meeting, but probably an entire course in and of itself. This is deep work. This is something generally you do with a coach. This is generally helps to have somebody who understands it to converse back and forth with. It is something you can absolutely do on your own. I'm going to give you the very top level context that I can, so that you can at least understand. When I hand this out, when I give this as homework, when you get the sheets later, I'm going to add more context to this list. But I would really recommend a few things, either working with a coach that has experience in this, reading on your own. I will put the book in the book recommendation that I have in the slides for you when I send them out later. But it's called No Bad Parts, Internal Family System by Dr. Richard Schwartz. So I'll send that. So that's a great resource to learn more about this, go into some deeper exercises on this. But I'm also going to have Lorna kind of give her experience of what she's done and kind of how she uses it in practice after we've gone through it. So super quick, the first step is to recognize. You need to recognize that a part is in the driver's seat, right? So you may even notice that this part is showing up at a particular place in your body. Maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a sensation, either like in your body or near you. So you're recognizing that you aren't quite in the driver's seat. The next is really when we're going to get very curious about this part and we're going to converse with it. So with all the loving kindness and curiosity that you can, we're going to engage with the part. This is, again, that part where it sounds kind of crazy, but I'm telling you, it shifts things so fast. So there's two ways. You can either talk as the part or talk to the part. If you're talking as the part, you're kind of taking that first person and you're asking a question and then you're answering the question as that part, and you're answering it as though you are that part, talking as it. Talking to it, it's kind of the different perspective. It's talking back to you, so you're not really embodying that part. It's more a two-way conversation. So talking as is really, really powerful, super hard to do kind of on your own, but talking as the part, you're really getting embodied into that part and being able to come up with a little bit more. But the talking to part, where it's a two-way conversation, you're asking questions and they're answering and you're talking to that part. It's a little easier to do when you're on your own. You're going to want to introduce yourself. Truly, a lot of these parts I mentioned last time end up getting stuck kind of when they were created. So a lot of these parts don't really know you. They're a little, I really don't like the word disassociated, but it truly is like they are stuck in a time when they were created and they don't recognize and or trust you to lead them, and that you've grown. So again, a lot more information I can provide and the links to some of this information, so that you can look a little bit further into it. But you really, again, want to introduce yourself, let them know who you are. You're introducing yourself. You are your authentic self when you're in this conversation. So you're going to utilize active listening and active asking skills. So this is essentially a coaching session with your parts. So what I will do in the handout tonight, I will send you some coaching questions that you can use, some starter questions that you can use to get this conversation going with this part. Again, you're finding out, when do they show up? What are they protecting you from? Where do they think you are? How do they feel they're protecting you? What are they protecting you from? And again, I'll end up sending you those questions in the exercise tonight, but that's the way that you can really start to get to know, wow, when did this show up? What are they protecting us from? And you'll find many times that it's something reacting, just like I did to my dad, something from the past. And the next step is to appreciate. You truly need to show appreciation to this part. Like, hey, I really understand. I appreciate you protecting me for so long. I know you've taken on a lot. Must be exhausting to do all of that, and to come from, again, that place of loving kindness. The next is to bring into congruence. So, again, letting the part know that while you appreciate the effort, what it's done for you, that you are able to be in control now. You're in a more powerful place. You are self-led. You can help, and that what they're doing is actually kind of detrimental. So it's not being accusatory, very loving place, but helping that part to understand that, okay, we are actually in a very different place now. What you're doing is stopping us, hindering us from getting to where we want to be. And then the last is partnering. It's shifting that. It's how can we bring that part into a congruence, something that's useful. Again, the inner critic probably wants to become your inner cheerleader, right? They are there to support you. They're just doing it in a somewhat dysfunctional way. So it is finding out what would that part be better suited for, and shifting that part. And then from there on, you're partnering with your part. You have brought it into alignment. Congruence. You've brought it into recognition, which is really what these parts want. So I know that's a really, really fast overview. Again, I will share resources with you. Was hoping, Lorna, we've gone through this, Lorna's been coaching with me for a while. We've gone through the framework. I've certainly done the part where we talked as the part, and I'm questioning the part for her. But now she does this without me. So I thought she could hop in and just share very quickly how she does this when something comes up.
Yes, happy to. Thank you. So the way that I handle doing my own parts work now, and luckily the process and journey of healing and growth is honestly, it's never ending. So I'm always constantly doing this. It always starts with a feeling. So that first step, like she said, recognize. It usually comes from here, like my gut, or my heart, or my chest. It's usually in this region here where I will feel it. And it will feel like a warning. It will feel like an alarm going off, or maybe like a school bell ringing, or a fire alarm going off. It's disruptive enough of a feeling that it does make me stop and say, okay, hold on, where is this coming from? And for me, for conversing, I talk to myself a lot in third person. Or in second person rather, in terms of we. So a common question I begin with, okay, what's going on? Why are we feeling this way? What don't we like about this situation? And when I stop and I ask that question and I give myself that pause, then that feeling that I felt, it almost expands. It expands, and I can feel more. I can feel in more detail, if that makes sense. I can feel in more detail. Common problems that Brenda's helped me work with is, dysfunctional family issues, a scarcity mindset, big one. So when I'm in that moment, when it's something to do with those types of cues or events, it's okay, what don't we like about this situation? Okay, yes, I know I just attended a networking event. I know I just met a bunch of people, got a bunch of numbers, shook a bunch of hands, but I don't want to reach out. We don't want to reach out to them. They're just going to dismiss us. They were just being nice because they were meeting us in the moment. They don't really care. They don't want to work with me. This is a huge waste of time. That is when I start to get a role like that. I think, okay. Where did we start thinking this way? Where did we pick up these beliefs? And again, just giving it that pause, giving the feeling more time to expand and give me more detail. And it takes me right back. It will take me right back to where I first started having those types of experiences in this type of setting with, similar, pattern of circumstances. And it's that part of me that's jumping up and saying, no, these are red flags. I recognize these. Do not go, do not pass go, do not collect $200, sit down, stay here, stay safe. And so once I can recognize that, then I can move on to the appreciation. And I also write my parts notes all the time. It helps me a lot to write my parts notes. I've written my part many notes about how much I appreciate that she's frugal and she's resourceful and she knows what it's like to have nothing, and she doesn't ever want to be in a space of having nothing again. So she absolutely is terrified of investing anything in herself. I appreciate all that about her. But what I need her to understand now is we do not live there anymore. We do not live in that same place. When I was her was a long time ago. I am not her anymore. She's still part of me, but she's not all of me anymore. And I explained to her that things are different, even if it feels a little bit like the same, because we're having a similar experience, but we're re-experiencing it in a new way from a new place with new information. And yeah, I explained to her, like, it is okay. I get that you're scared. I'm not scared, but we're going to do this anyway. We're going to send all these follow-up emails, and we're going to reach out to these people, and we're going to see where it goes. And just to wrap this up, and so you guys know I'm not BSing on this, literally 120 seconds before this meeting started, I set up a meeting with somebody that I just cold reached out to from LinkedIn after being home in Syracuse for homecoming weekend, where I did a ton of networking. Like this is real time putting this work to practice. I was very, very nervous. I even told Brenda, I don't know where to start. There's too much information. There's way too many people out there, people with more experience, people who have been in this space. I have none. And we work through it. We talk through it, and it never doesn't work. Is the parts work is the point. So that's my investigative process, is a very active inner dialogue. I talk to myself in third person, in second person, and I write myself in my parts notes. And that really does seem to help me a whole lot.
Thank you so much. I think it's so helpful. I can sit and talk about what it is all day long, but until you actually experience it and you're doing the work, everybody ends up doing it a little bit differently. And so it's really helpful to hear how other people do it. I'm a somewhat similar process. I do talk, I have come to talk in the, I guess, second person. Thank you, communication specialist. Have come to talk in the second person with my parts, like, okay, what can we do about this? Like, it's because I've done the work and I've brought them along with me. So anyway, I will share more information about this. Hopefully, at some point I would love to do just individual classes on this alone, but I do hope you can see the value in this, and I'll provide some more information for you guys. So this actually leads right into the next thing, right? So everything we've been doing with the parts, everything we've been doing with belief shifting, etc., is because you guys want to know, how do I use my intuition? And so now that we've talked to the parts, we kind of know that they have a voice, and they're starting to recognize when that voice comes up. We can start to kind of tease out, is this my intuitive voice, or is this some other voice? And so remember, the intuitive voice is that voice of your authentic self. To me, it's coming from the future or the past self, and giving you information in the moment. And the voice of the part, I think it's really the voice of those unchosen beliefs, and it's the director trying to direct your life in one way or another. So when I hear a voice that is not my intuitive voice, I know that it's that director voice. It's that embodied belief talking to me. And so that's how I'm going to compare this. So the first time, the way that you can tell the intuitive voice versus your the director voice is compassion versus criticism. So your intuition is very encouraging, supportive, never critical. Even if a message is disappointing or somewhat scary, it's given to you with love. It is not there to instill fear. It's truly on your side, and it's a compassionate voice that you're here. The director uses criticism, fear, discouragement. It's truly that inner critic. It's trying to get you to stay in line. So when you hear that voice, it's the fear voice. The critical voice is going to be your non-intuitive voice. That's going to be your director part. The second way is curiosity versus fear. Intuition really encourages you to explore, to open up, to be very inquisitive. It's like a child. It's like, why? It wants you to know and understand and ask more questions, understand the why around everything. It actually supports the explorations of what if. It's whenever you're in that expansive state and you're asking, like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did this? And you are following and following that through. It keeps you looking for new options and information, and keeps giving you information. The more curious and open you get, the more your intuitive voice talks to you. Whereas directors are going to just cut that shit out. They are going to shut you down with fear. They're going to paralyze you. They're going to end the conversation. They're going to want to stop you from even trying. They will add to your stories. If you ask what if, they're going to give you all of the bad things that are going to happen. So your intuitive voice is not just encouraging and compassionate, but it's curious as well. It's leading you to curiosity and giving you pieces of information to help you get to that next step. The next is encouraging versus controlling. Your intuition is a voice that's very empowering, cooperative. It's making suggestions, but not direct answers. I know we all want direct answers. We want to tap into our intuition and get the direct answer. It's going to give us hints. It's going to give us resources. It's going to give us those next steps that move us towards our authentic self. At the end of the day, it can't give us a direct answer, because ultimately we have free will, right? The future is not written, although the future is existing at the same time as now, but forgetting the time-space non-existence, ultimately you have free will to make the decisions that you want to make. And so that's why the intuition doesn't give you what your future is going to be or what you should do. What it's giving you is that feeling of what is the next best step, what is in support of your highest good and your authentic self. Directors are going to spur those overwhelming emotions to stop you. It's going to give you intrusive thoughts, going to make mandates like stop immediately. Nope, we are not doing this. It will direct you, it will bully you or coerce you. Making the directors out to be really, really horrible, but it's truly this very, very different voice. And I hope you're starting to see, the pattern here. The next is composure versus nervousness. Sound like I'm nervous now. The intuition is calm and centered and steady. Even when it's warning you about something, it communicates from a place of power and peace and centeredness. Directors, you're going to hear them being very anxious, jittery, all over the place, kind of bouncing off the wall. It's going to run your worst case scenarios for you on loop and provide you with even more reasons to be nervous. The authentic self, even when it's telling you something maybe you don't want to hear or that is scary for you to do the next step, it's still going to be this calm and steady voice. The next is outcome-driven versus issue-centric. The intuitive voice is always looking for solutions or encouraging your path to a solution. It sees the possibilities and the what-ifs. The directors are going to see nothing but problems at hand and continue to add more things to the problem. Even if you think of another problem, it will probably even think of another problem altogether to add on to your problem. It's going to offer this. The other big point here is it's going to offer the solution to you of just continuing to do what you're already doing. That's a tricky one. So that is a voice if you're trying to make a change or you're trying to make, movements in your life and you hear a voice that's like, no, just keep staying where you are, stay safe. That is definitely going to be that director voice. And then the last is self-reflective versus external action. The intuitive voice understands that, as we've said many times, our outer world is a direct reflection of our internal reality, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, how we're acting. And as such, it supports our growth and our development and our expansion. It supports living from this place of strength and reframing and healing your old wounds. Whereas directors are going to lead you to believe everything is outside of your control. It uses competition, it's going to use comparison, it's going to use blame and envy to keep you stuck where you are, because it wants you to believe the world is keeping you down. The world is the problem. There's nothing you can do. Stay small, stay safe, stay home. That would be the voice of the director. So while you can hit the next slide. So while the intuitive voice is all of these wonderful things, you still may not like what it's going to tell you to do, right? It may be incredibly supportive, loving, and all of these things, and it's gonna hint to you. It's gonna show up as synchronicities that are not going to be comfortable to you. That's what happens when we're growing. It's not going to communicate with fear, but many times what it's guiding you towards is going to be something that you've been avoiding or have this level of fear around. Most intuitive hits and synchronicities that show up are moving you to where you're supposed to be. Your intuitive voice is the voice of your authentic self, of your future self. It knows where you're supposed to be, what your highest good is, where you are today versus where you should be. And so it's moving you closer to congruence. And it will involve that something again that's outside of your comfort zone, and perhaps a level of fear to get there. So whatever side of the SWOO you're on here about synchronicities, we went into depth in the first session about synchronicities, whether they are from the universe and from your future self, these delivered messages, these things that are put into your path and align you with it's a breadcrumb, right? For you to follow, whether you believe that is the truth or whether you believe that you are now more in touch with who your authentic self is, where you're going. And so you start to notice things in your path, in your reality that will get you there. Either one, it doesn't matter which one it is or which is true. I keep saying that about SWOO. It doesn't matter. Both end up the same way. They help your intuition to come online. You're going to notice that doors will open, your new people are going to show up, opportunities will present themselves, you'll rediscover old passions and hobbies. These are your synchronicities. These are the leads. Notice that none of those tell you exactly what to do, right? You're going to have a door open. What do you do, right? You're going to meet new people, Lorna, at this weekend, right? You have all these people. Are you going to step into that fear and do the next step? So you'll start to notice as you start to listen to your intuition, start to believe in this, start to tease out your beliefs in the world, meaning you're getting to know the authentic you. These things are going to start to show up, and it's going to take you moving on these things in order for your intuition to keep flowing, to keep bringing you the information, or else this breadcrumb trail is going to go cold. It's not going to stay open, right? There's only so many times you're going to start to see synchronicities. Again, whether the universe shuts it down, right? Suicide, or if you are on the SWOO side of believing that it's all in your head, you're just going to start to get frustrated and you're going to stop seeing opportunities. Everything again is going to become a challenge and not an opportunity. So running towards fear. Fear is an instinct. We talked about this already. It's one of the 3 programs that runs your subconscious. Fear of that type is valid, right? Instinctual fear, running away from predators, that fear instinct, it is valid. It keeps us very alert. It keeps us very alive. Like when we are going to cross a busy street, or we're getting ready to jump out of an airplane, right? Those are situations like you could probably die, right? So it's good to have that healthy level of fear. Unfortunately, most of the things that trigger our fear response these days in the world that we live in are not life-threatening, not life and death. We live a pretty solidly cozy existence compared to our ancestors and, even people just a couple hundred years ago. So, but because we are in our heads so much thinking about these worst possible outcomes, again, I have to remind you, our mind doesn't know if what we are thinking is any different than what we're experiencing, right? We can get ourselves into a level, again, of I remember something that happened in the past, I can still feel those emotions. The same thing's going to happen with worry. If we're worried about the future, or worried about what's going to happen, our mind doesn't know if that is in real time happening to us, or if it's just in our mind. So we actually end up initiating that fear response, all inclusive, the biological and neurological systems ramping up to support that fight or flight that fear invokes. So, we are ramping up our adrenaline, our cortisol, our heart rate, our increased breathing, all through our thoughts. These all come online just based on our thoughts. So we're sending ourselves into this state. And once we get there, right, we've thought these things. So now we're in an even worse place. We cannot really think subjectively about what's going on, because we can't think through what we're perceiving, because that thing is really scary when it's our belief about what may happen that is scary. So if it's our belief that something scary is going to happen, it's going to put us into this circular, death spiral of fear. And what we're really fearing is the belief of what will happen and not what's going to happen itself. 1 second. Apologies. It's Ohio weather. I think most of you are here, but it is hot, then cold, and then just it's crazy. So anyway, apologize for that. So a way to think of this is that we need to distinguish between our real and rational fears keeping us alive, and our imagined, created, irrational fears, right? It might have been like a hint of a fear, but then we've turned it into like this fear spiral. So one way to think of it, a phrase that you might want to think of, is rational fear keeps us alive, irrational fear keeps us from living. So get a little more doom and gloom before I light things back up. I mean, really a way to think of this too is really, you're going to feel pain either way, right? So you're scared of doing something like, oh, I don't want to do the thing. It's so scary. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. Like, you're going to feel the pain either way. You're going to feel the pain of sitting in the current existence that you're in, that, might just be right beyond the next scary thing that you have to do is where you want to be. So you could sit your entire existence in this big scary thing and you think you're avoiding the pain, but you're not. You're still feeling a pain. It's just not the same, right? And so you're staying stuck. So there's no guarantee that, when you take this risk that you're gonna get the outcome that you want, but the potential is just staying the same. So is the potential pain, the imagined pain, actually worse than the pain that you're stuck in right now? So, just a philosophical thing to think about. So we need to get to the bottom of what you're afraid of happening. Again, we're going to shine that light. We've talked about this. We're making the subconscious conscious, just like we did with beliefs. So look, I'm going to make you face your fear and do it anyway, like with the help of our higher self. We're going to get there, but I'm actually going to make a case for fear being a beautiful thing. I think the next slide supports this one. Nope, it does not. Okay, that's okay. We'll stick with this. So we're going to face our fear. We're going to do it anyway. And after we get through, we'll shift it around. We'll do the fear identifier. So after we get through the identifying of fear, I'm going to walk you through an example and give you this as an exercise. I'm going to really walk you through, take you out of the doom and gloom and really start to see why fear can be a very, very beautiful thing in your life. At least if we come to an understanding of the belief that's really at the heart of that fear. So when we don't stop to feel the fear, we don't really stop to analyze it, question it, we take it at face value, or we start to devolve, right? So the director is taking back over, and we don't know what we're even actually scared of to begin with, right? We're in this fear cyclone spiral, downward spiral of fear, and the heart of the fear might be something that is actually not what we fear at all. And if we can get to the root of that belief, we can start to address. Again, everything comes back to beliefs. Start to address that belief. So this exercise here is going to be included in the weekly or the session recap booklet, and I'll kind of give you a blank one to work with. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the situation. We're going to write that down. We have 3 columns: the situation, just face value. What is the situation? And then we're going to name the fear. So what is your initial fear that you have? And then we're going to start to uncover the fear behind the fear. So giving you guys an example. So I definitely feared creating and running this course. So that was a fear that came up. It was the situation. What was my fear about? It was about, what are people going to say? I'm going to look stupid. I don't have enough information to share with people. How can I possibly fill 6 hours of information? Nobody's going to, what if people don't see changes? What if this was a waste of my time and everybody's time? What if I'm saying something that doesn't help anybody? What if they just look at this as a complete waste of time? Like, all of these things are running through my head, and I'm in this fear cyclone, right? But what does it really ultimately come down to? It's that the fear that if I don't get this right, I am not going to get to do what I love for a living, and I'm going to end up back in corporate. So how is this helpful? Sure, we've identified everything, right? But as I look at the fear, okay, like, if I don't get down to it, if I don't get to do what I do for a living and I end up back in corporate, that's kind of like my worst fear realized. But if I don't go through and create and start running this course and see how it works and start to fix it and make it something bigger and get your guys' feedback and do all of these things, then I'm absolutely going to end up with that fear behind the fear. I'm going to end up in corporate. If I don't make the move I'm going to get exactly the fear that I have. So all these fears were supporting a fear that was behind the fear, if this makes sense. And that thing at the very bottom, that fear that I'm fearing, if it is the fear that if I don't do the big scary thing and just see it through, it is where I'm going to end up. So it's kind of this cycle. So this just kind of helps you get to what is the root of your fear. And so it's not going to necessarily always stop it. Although like in this example, it really did show me like, okay, well, you can choose, right? I'm at the end of the fear cycle here. Yeah, if you don't do this thing, you probably will end up just back in corporate. You have to face your fear and move beyond it. It gave me that choice, right? Do it, or you know what, your fear is probably going to come true. So which of the fears is the worst of the fears? And to me, ending up back in corporate is like way scarier than bringing all this to you guys. So knowledge is power, right? But again, what do we do with this knowledge? And I always say that, like, hey, great education, great thoughts. Now what? So the future self tool is going to help us move beyond this. If going through the fear identifier doesn't help bring it full circle for you and make you feel a little bit better or get you moving, your future self avatar, we'll call it, is going to help you. So I did promise to bring back why fear is actually a good thing. If you're fearing a move that you want to make in this life, it's actually a really beautiful thing. This, I think, is the next slide. Yes. Okay. All right. So it's actually a beautiful thing. Like, you've made it. Acknowledge this is a really big pivotal point for you in our growth towards our authentic self. It's in the right direction. It's pointing that we're moving in the right direction. It's letting us know we're on the right track. If you want to take it a step further, it's actually an achievement that you're even at this point, right? You've done the work. You can recognize that you need to make another step. It means you've reached the end of your current tolerance. You've outgrown where you are. You're at the end of your comfort zone, and you're pushed into this boundary where you're ready to level up. It's it's that show up moment. Show up or shut up. I don't know. Is that the saying? Whatever it is. But nonetheless, you are at this like pivotal, beautiful moment that the fear is pointing you to, like, you've leveled up. You've leveled up. You are ready to jump. So get excited. Also, you're starting to hear your intuition, right? It is starting to come through. If you are at this point, you're feeling this fear, you know the next step, but it's big, scary. Man, you're following your intuition. You're following those hits for you. Put up or shut up. Thank you, Brandon. I should have known you would know. Thank you. Put up or shut up. It's exactly what it's saying. So there you go. So right. So your intuition is online. So you're scared to move, but you're also starting to hear your intuition, which is a reason again to love your fear. So you can come to actually enjoy it. I'm kind of like a glutton for punishment for fear at this point. When it shows up, I'm like, yes, like I know I'm finally going to get to move. There's a level of excitement that comes along with it. You can sense what's on the other side of what's of what you fear. You get this, like, you can feel the fear, but you can also feel how much bigger you're going to be on the other side of it. So it's this balance. And so here's the thing, right? You're never going to be ready for anything. Like, you're really never going to be ready, especially for the big moves. You can do all the studying, the reading, get all of the degrees that you want. You can do all of the things that you think will get you ready. But even at the end of those, you're not going to feel ready. Like, think of the biggest decisions you've made, right? Like having a kid, changing jobs, changing entire career fields, buying a house. Were you ever like, yep, I am so completely 100% ready for this, right? No, you felt a level of fear, but you're like, what is on the other side of this is so much bigger and better. I'm going to do it anyway. You feel, I know you can feel like the level at some point in your life of this mix of fear and excitement. So it's learning to lean into it. I was asked this week, somebody emailed me from this group and asked me, where does confidence come from? Is it intuition? Is it a belief? And I honestly believe this is it. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Like, this is where you gain your confidence, because you've done all of the things, right? You have shed light on your subconscious. You are examining your belief. You've adopted these new ones that are going to move you forward. You've said, fuck what doesn't fit, to hell with. Exactly. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You have adopted these new ones. You're kicking out ones that you don't believe anymore. You're shifting them, right? We're not losing them, but we're saying, you know what? No, that doesn't make sense for me anymore. This is what I now believe. You are adopting your own beliefs consciously. And you're moving everything towards congruence with your higher self. And so you've taken this big leap exactly to who you want to be. And this is really where confidence comes from, is doing all of this work, figuring out exactly who the authentic self is, and then making the big scary leap directly into that, over the abyss, into the next piece. So I love fear at this point. I actively work with my future self avatar all the time, which is the next piece for us. And so I hope one day you guys are able to say that too, and identify when something is scary for you. You are just like right before a really, really, really big move in your life. So start to look for it, start to identify what the fear is behind the fear, and then know you're going to do it anyway. Okay, I think the next slide. There we go. Okay, finally back to the future self. Why was I having you write this avatar? Why was I having you rewrite, revisit this story? Really getting to know your future self. You have to know this person. We started with the perfect day because I needed you to know this person. I needed you to be able to drop into character, to drop into this person. And needed you, how do you do that? Again, emotions, right? We tie with emotions. So I wanted you to be able to feel it. And I wanted you to feel good things, right? I wanted you to identify the future self with good things. Positive energy is the good way to go. We're getting into coherence, etc. So that's why we thought about our perfect day. Also, it starts to bring up, thoughts of like, what does this person believe? What does this person do? So there's so many things that we can do with our future self, and the future, the perfect day is a great starting point. But like, it is kind of like the character in an opening scene of a movie. You get to know them most of the time. If it's the protagonist, they're like really likable, you're like on their side, you're like, yes, you're a really cool person, I like you, but you don't really know much about their background and much about their depth, right? Surface level, pretty awesome. Surface level, I love your future self, you love your future self. Now we get into character development, is what I call it. It's where we really start to get to know this future self, new beliefs, and expand this person beyond just their perfect day. We're gonna put them to scenarios that aren't so perfect, right? Things today that scare us, things today that we would want to show up differently. So your future self is really a vehicle to get you to your authentic self. So your future self already knows how to show up in every single scenario that you fear, every single scenario that you don't know how to handle yet, and those scenarios that you just don't know how to show up in yet. They don't have fear because they know how it works out. They've been there, done that. They know the steps, they know how you did it, and they are your perfect guide. So again, I want you to think of this as like your avatar, right? It's you, but it's a version of you kind of beside you, outside of you. It shows up differently depending on what scene in life you are. We talked earlier when we started talking about parts about how we have these different versions of self, whether it's a work self, a relationship self, a parent self, a self, right? I'm different to myself than I am to other people in my life. So we need to start building out individual scenes for our avatars, adding to that perfect day story, exactly who is this person, and specifically incorporating all of these beliefs that we want to embody. The goal is to have this avatar that you can step into. So just like we were stepping into the perfect space to feel it, now we want to have an avatar that we can step into to experience something for us. And this allows us to do two important things. First, it allows you to develop a way to practice pre-playing a scenario out in your life, to practice how you show up, what you're going to say, what you're going to do. This goes back, we just talked about it 5 minutes ago, to the fact that our brain doesn't know the difference between when we imagine something happening and when it is actually happening. But this time we're actually going to use this function of our mind. We're going to use it to our advantage. So we're going to take advantage of this feature of our brain. It's a way to create our reality. I know you've probably heard elite athletes especially use this when they're practicing, getting ready for a big game. They're visualizing making the big shot over and over and over and over again. They're making the I'm really not great with sports. The 3-pointer, right? I think that's the thing. So they're making the touchdown pass. They're seeing all of their plays. They're seeing their playbook running out, and they're seeing everything happening. They're seeing this perfect execution. And it's, again, been statistically proven that as you play through these things, and you can watch these athletes actually have like a higher percentage of shots made, et cetera. The next is acting in real time from your future self avatar takes away a level of fear. Again, it's you, but it's you over here, right? The avatar knows how to show up. You're not showing up as your current self. It creates a space and a distance for you that gives you a feeling of safety, of being able to play, of choosing how you show up. You've rehearsed, or you are rehearsing, you know how you're going to do it, and then you just step out as this avatar. It's this safe space to practice from, pretending the scenes. Yes, good point. Seeing how a movie and show is put together. Yes, actor. I was actually going to bring in the actors. That's actually see, Samantha, we're connected. And the next point, Samantha's talking about how she was at Warner Brothers this weekend, and they're talking about how a movie and a show is put together and how actors prepare to do their scenes. This is what people use. So athletes, LeBron James is King James, is his avatar. Shaquille O'Neal, I had to look these up. Shaq Diesel. This one I knew, singers, actors, Beyonce is Sasha Fierce, Marshall Mathers, right? He's actually not Eminem. Slim Shady is actually his alter ego, is actually who he shows up as when he's nervous. So you have this evidence of people, very, very famous people, when they have to do something that they want to do to get to the next level, using this technique to be able to get distance and safety, but still be able to do the thing. So I don't like using the term alter ego. Other coaches use this. There's actually an entire book called Alter Ego, if you want to check it out. The only thing I don't like about it is that, it's why do we need to step outside of ourselves and who we want to be? They really encourage like choosing a character from a movie, or choosing a superhero, right? Somebody who's not you. Like, why be somebody else when you can just know yourself and just know who you want to become? So for me, I think I want to actively choose my own beliefs, my new behaviors, my new actions and thoughts, and make this avatar me instead of depending on it being somebody else. If you really get back to what alter ego means, Cicero, philosopher, statesman from all the way back in the 1st century BC, its meaning was actually a second half, a trusted friend. And if you take the literal translation from Latin, the literal translation of alter ego is the other I. So really, if alter ego hadn't been kind of moved into this space of choose your favorite superhero and show up as that, I probably would use alter ego. But like, what they're saying is the same thing. I think the power comes from being you and defining you and showing up as you, just as a future version of yourself. There we go. Okay, so what do? We have 6 minutes left. So your homework is going to be similar prompts so we're going to write your future self in a specific scenario. We're taking this avatar, we're putting it in a very specific scenario. Choose the one that you came to this course to work on. That's probably going to be the easiest one for you. If you've already resolved that, you figured it out, great. Pick something else. Pick how you want to show up at work. Pick something you have, maybe you have a meeting with your boss and you want to talk about a promotion. Pick something that you want to work on, that you're scared about, and that you would want to work through. So it's going to be very detailed. Again, just like with the future self story, we're going to get into a level of detail. So as you step into the avatar, you are stepping into how they feel, how they act, how they show up. So we're going to get very detailed, thinking through how they would handle the scene and the situation. We won't have time today, but next time we will pick it up. Once you know your future avatar in the scenario, we're going to talk through ways to plop that person, that avatar, right into the situation and how to work with the avatar. But I need you to be able to drop into that person. So really get some detail around this person. Don't worry, I'm going to give you some prompts of what to consider as you're writing this person, emotions, beliefs first, emotions, actions, etc. And And again, write about how you want to show up. If your current beliefs and your fears and all of this were completely erased, magic wand, they're gone. How are you showing up? Don't write about how you don't want to show up. Remember, important to bring that positive energy, to bring the positive emotions, to bring about coherence. We want that coherence, right? We want our brain patterns to be in alignment with our heart rhythm patterns, etc. And feeling what we want does that, whereas what we don't want, or don't bring that energy in. From the SWOO perspective, from the woo side, and from the science perspective, don't do it. Okay, and so next, so we're going to write your story. Great. As you're writing your story, like, think about your cape or your glasses, right? Like, I know I said not to think about Clark Kent and superheroes, but I do want you to pick some talisman. So, you know, pick something that signifies that you are in an avatar mode, that's going to prompt you to be in that mode. I have this stone, right? SWOO, you can tell me rocks don't have any magical powers. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't really know. I just like it. And this has become when I come on these calls, I'm hanging on to this thing. Like, I have stepped into my future self. I'm showing up exactly how I want to teach this course. And I have the courage, and I am stepping into the role. Hi, I'm actually future Brenda. So anyway, so this is my reminder. This is my grounding, that when I'm stepping into this character, I have something to remind me that I'm in this character. So come up with something that's easy to keep on you. So that's pretty, if you're going and you're going to use this at work or something, it can either be like a thing, or it can be an action. Maybe it's like I don't know, maybe you like kind of tap the side of your temple or something, just something to cue you into, like, okay, it's time. I am in my avatar mode. I'm no longer, stuck belief Brenda. I am now future me, and I'm acting from here. And she shows up with courage and authenticity and et cetera, all of the things I have written into my story. It's literally just a reminder, and it puts me into character. So then the last thing, this is kind of a bonus if you want to do it. I actually haven't done this, but again, dear Lorna has done this, and she actually came up with this idea. So give yourself a name. And for even more fun bonuses, an avatar AI image. Lorna is actually Mighty. So Lorna's character is Mighty. Whenever she needs to step into something, hope you don't mind sharing that, but it is your Twitter handle, so I don't think so. But anyway, so Twitter has always become, that's Sasha Fierce for Lorna. So like Mighty Mouse. So there we go. So Mighty. So she's Mighty. And she doesn't just have that. We were doing, talk about the SWOO. We were doing belief, what the heck are they called? Vision boards. And she actually went into an AI creator. And one of the things Lorna wants to do is to speak on stage. And so one of these avatars that came up was actually her on stage in this like gorgeous gown with a microphone that was like rhinestone studded, etc. So she actually put that onto her vision board. So just things again to help you anchor to this person, to this future you, to this avatar. So I do absolutely want you to write your story. That is absolutely pivotal. I have 3 of them. Let me see if this actually works. And then I don't know, Lorna, if you have the one that you used. So the first one, my understanding is the first one, that Fodor is more of like a creative type of, I dropped this into the chats for those of you watching the recording. I just dropped 3 names into the chat. You're going to have this whenever I send around the recap today, and I send around the homework. So yeah, those should be links for you. The Fodor, I believe, is the one that you can get most creative with. I think all of these, you can kind of give them what industry you're in, what do you want your avatar to kind of feel and look like. So yeah, so play with that. I do want you to come up with, you have to have your story. There you go. That's the good one. So do want you to have your story very solid. And I want you to have your cape, your glasses, your talisman, your stone, your tap, your thing that's going to cue you that you're in character. And for fun, if you come up with a name and an avatar, I would absolutely love to spend the beginning of next session just kind of starting. And if you have those and don't mind sharing, that can be pretty fun. So yeah, next session, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to shift into this future self, use it in action, both practicing ahead of something and then walking into a situation with it. We're going to talk about ways to get back to your future self when you're off track. We're going to walk through another intuitive exercise. It's about asking very clear questions. So the intuitive things that we've talked about thus far has been kind of just like receiving information, recognizing when we're receiving information. We can also learn to ask very clear questions of our intuition and then be able to receive guidance. And so we'll work through both how to clear out any preconceived notions, ask a very clear question, and then work on a centering exercise to ask the question from a very centered place. And then we're going to wrap up the course. That will be it. So I'm going to ask for your impressions. I'm also going to do a survey. I hope you guys will fill it out. I really want to know like what you've liked so far, what maybe you would change, what you would like to see more of, what you want more detail on. Format questions. You know, I know I am realizing a lot of this needs to be recorded and then we come to sessions live. Probably definitely less frequently, but you know, is this an interactive? Would you guys have liked to have interacted with each other? This is something I'd love for you to think about. Like, is this too personal? I know, is it too personal to really share? Is there a way that we can share? Is it during these chats, right? Could I open it up to more just you guys discussing during class? Also, you know, if I move and I'm on a site and I can support a group, would you be interested in having a group? I know I'm 50-50 with that. I know I'm put into a lot of Facebook groups when I join courses, and sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. I know not everybody uses Facebook, so I'd love your feedback too on, is it like Facebook? Would you hate to have yet another application you have to go to, or would it be nice if you're going into your course that you can be in a group there and asking questions and seeing a feed? So just some things to think through that I'd really like your feedback on, to see, you know, as I take this and roll this out and make it bigger. I want to make it as good as I can for everybody. So I appreciate you guys. Any last second questions? I know we're over time, but if you want to drop them into the chat, happy to answer. And Lorna, again, for everybody on the recording, Lorna shared another resource for that AI generating a photo application. So I will share that in your homework that I send out later today. So anything else, guys? All right. Look for the recording and the recap and everything else later today. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye, guys.